10 years ago, my life was torn apart in a single afternoon. My wife of 8 years, the woman I had built a home with, raised a son with, vanished without a trace. Her car was found submerged in a rain-swollen river at the edge of town. For months, I wept over an empty casket while raising our 7-year-old son, Leo, entirely on my own. Hey everyone, my name is Alex. If you're new here, welcome. If you've been around for a while, thank you for coming back. Before I start this story, I need you to know something important. What you are about to hear is not a movie script, not a dramatized internet tale, and not something I made up for views. This is what actually happened to me. Let's continue the story. 10 years ago, my life was torn apart. What I didn't know was that my wife hadn't drowned. She had emptied our joint business account, staged her own death, and fled the country with my former business partner, Marcus, the man I trusted like a brother. For 10 long years, I rebuilt my life from the absolute ash. I worked 90-hour weeks, paid off the debt they left me in, and raised Leo into a fine, honorable young man. And then, against all odds, lightning struck. I won a $54 million state lottery jackpot. 3 weeks later, a woman dressed in designer clothes walked into my office, carrying a forged legal document and a smug smile, claiming that because we were never legally divorced, half of every single dollar belonged to her. If you've ever been backstabbed by the person who swore to cherish you, if you've ever had to hold your crying child in the middle of the night while trying to figure out how to put food on the table, and if you've ever watched a toxic parasite walk back into your life thinking they can feast on the fruits of your labor, this story is for you. Before I go any further, if you're new here, please hit that subscribe button and turn on the notification bell. It really helps the channel grow and lets more people who need this kind of story find it. And if this video resonates with you at all, leave a like. It costs nothing and means everything to creators like me. Drop a comment too if you've ever survived a deep betrayal. I read as many as I can. Alright, let's begin. 10 years ago, I ran a modest commercial logistics firm called Apex Transport. I started it in a drafty garage with Marcus Vance. Marcus was my closest friend since college. When I married Sarah, Marcus was my best man. When my son Leo was born, Marcus was named his godfather. In our house, loyalty wasn't just a word. It was the foundation of our entire world. Sarah was vibrant, ambitious, and sharp. Or at least, that was the persona she presented. By our 8th wedding anniversary, I noticed subtle shifts. Small things at first. Closed doors when her phone rang. Business trips that Marcus had to handle alone in neighboring states that somehow dragged on for extra days. But I trusted them both implicitly. I thought I was being a supportive husband and a good business partner. Then came the rainy Tuesday in November. I came home to find 6-year-old Leo sitting on the living room rug, drawing a picture of our family with a blue crayon. Sarah was late. I called her cell phone, straight to voicemail. By midnight, panic set in. I called Marcus, but his phone went straight to a dead tone as well. At 4 a.m., the police knocked on my door. They found Sarah's SUV, down in Blackwood Ravine, overturned in the raging current of the swollen river. The driver's side window was smashed open. Her purse was still on the passenger seat, but her body was gone. The detectives explained that in a river moving that fast, bodies were often carried miles downstream into the open bay. I collapsed on the porch steps. I remember the cold rain soaking through my shirt, but I couldn't feel it. All I could think about was how I was going to tell my 6-year-old boy that his mother was gone. 2 weeks later, the final blow landed. I went to the bank to secure payroll for my employees, only to discover that our primary business reserve account, over $400,000, had been cleared out via cashier's checks 2 days before the accident. When I went to confront Marcus at his house, the place was completely cleared out. Not a single piece of furniture remained. The police conducted a brief investigation, but without hard proof, they concluded that Marcus had simply panicked after the financial loss and fled, while Sarah had tragically drowned. I was left holding $400,000 in debt, a failing company, and a motherless child who woke up screaming for his mom every single night for a year. There was no dramatic breakdown. That would have been a luxury I couldn't afford. Instead, I sold my personal car, took out a second mortgage on our small home, and took on 3 extra shifts a week driving delivery trucks. I learned to live around the missing piece. I taught myself how to braid Leo's hair for school pictures, how to cook balanced meals on a shoestring budget, and how to sit with the suffocating silence of a house built on ghosts. Fast forward 10 years. Leo was now 16 years old, tall, sharp, a standout student, and the center of my universe. Apex Transport was long gone, but through relentless effort, I had built a respectable logistics consultancy firm. We were comfortable, but we weren't rich. Every dollar was hard-earned. Then came a casual Saturday morning in May. I stopped by a corner gas station to buy coffee and a couple of scratch-off tickets, a little ritual I did once a month. I tossed the tickets into my glove compartment and completely forgot about them for 3 days. On Tuesday evening, while checking my email, I pulled the ticket out and checked the winning numbers on my phone. 7, 14, 22, 39, 51, Powerball 11. I looked at the screen. Then I looked at the ticket. I read the numbers backwards. I read them forwards. My heart didn't race. It completely stopped. I had won the lump sum payout of $54 million. I didn't rent a limousine. I didn't go out and buy a mansion or a sports car. The very first thing I did was hire a top-tier asset protection attorney named Arthur Vance, no relation to Marcus, and place the entirety of the winnings into a blind family trust, designated strictly for Leo's future, and charitable local foundations. A month later, the State Lottery Commission released the mandatory public notice. The Horizon Family Trust claims the $54 million jackpot. My name was listed as the sole trustee. 4 days after the announcement, my office receptionist called my extension. Her voice was trembling slightly. "Mr. Rivera, there's a woman in the lobby. She doesn't have an appointment, but she says she's your wife." My hand froze on the phone receiver. I walked out into the lobby. Standing by the window was a woman in a cream-colored designer trench coat, wearing oversized sunglasses and carrying a leather handbag that probably cost more than my first delivery truck. She turned around and pulled off her glasses. It was Sarah. 10 years had added fine lines around her eyes, but it was unmistakably her. The same woman I had mourned over an empty grave. The same woman whose picture my son had cried over for years. She didn't look pale or ashamed. She looked polished, rested, and completely calm. "Hello, Alex," she said, her voice smooth, as if she had just returned from a long weekend in the Hamptons. "You look well." I stood there, 3 feet away from a ghost, feeling the floor underneath my feet go cold. "You're dead," I said. My voice was barely a whisper, but it carried the weight of 10 years of agony. "The police? The river?" Sarah let out a soft, dismissive chuckle and took a seat on the leather sofa without being asked. "Oh, please, Alex. Let's not be melodramatic," she said, smoothing her skirt. The river was a clean exit strategy. Marcus and I needed a fresh start in South America. Business here was stagnant, and frankly, married life with you was mind-numbing. She leaned back, looking around my modest office with a smirk. Marcus and I had a good 10-year run in Brazil, but as fate would have it, Marcus blew through our capital on bad investments and left me last year. So I came back home, and imagine my surprise when I turned on the local news and saw my quiet, hard-working husband popping up as the sole trustee of a $54 million lottery payout. I stared at her, stunned into absolute silence. There was no apology in her eyes, no inquiry about our son. No remorse for leaving a 6-year-old child motherless. "Why are you here, Sarah?" I asked, my voice dropping into a dangerous, steady register. She reached into her designer bag and pulled out a manila folder, placing it firmly on my desk. "I'm here for my half, Alex," she said flatly. "You see, in your grief, you never filed a petition to have me legally declared dead. You just left me as a missing person. Legally speaking, we are still married. There is no divorce decree, and under state law, all lottery winnings acquired during a marriage are considered joint marital property. $27 million belongs to me." She smiled, a cold, calculated expression that made me realize I had never truly known the woman I married. "Pay me my $27 million, Alex, or I file a formal claim in court tomorrow morning, drag through the press, and tie up every single penny of that trust in litigation for the next decade." I didn't scream. I didn't lose my temper. 10 years of surviving on the edge teaches you one thing: anger is a useless emotion when you are dealing with a predator. You don't fight a snake with passion, you use a stick. "Give me 24 hours to speak with my legal counsel," I said quietly. Sarah smirked, stood up, and patted my shoulder with her gloved hand. "Wise choice, Alex. I'm staying at the Grand Hyatt. I expect a cashier's check by 5 p.m. tomorrow." The moment her heels stopped clicking down the hallway, I called Arthur Vance, my lead attorney, and scheduled an emergency 7 a.m. meeting. The next morning, Arthur sat across from me in his corner office, reviewing the documents Sarah had provided. Joining us via video conference was Detective Miller, a retired homicide investigator whom Arthur had put on retainer. "She's right about one thing, Alex," Arthur said, taking off his glasses. "Because she was never declared legally dead, you remain legally married. If she files a petition for marital asset division, a judge might temporarily freeze the trust assets until the legal marriage status is adjudicated." "So she wins?" I asked. Arthur smiled, a slow, razor-sharp smile that only seasoned litigation attorneys possess. "Sarah made a fatal miscalculation, Alex," Arthur said. "She thought she was walking into the home of a broken, grieving husband. She forgot that staged deaths and financial theft carry something called a statute of limitations. And more importantly, federal jurisdiction." Detective Miller spoke up over the speakerphone. "We ran her passport records, Alex. When Sarah staged her accident 10 years ago, she used a stolen identity, a fraudulent passport under the name Elena Gomez, to cross the border into Mexico before flying to Rio. She cleared out your corporate accounts using forged wire authorization forms bearing your forged signature. That isn't just marital dispute material. That is felony bank fraud, identity theft, and tax evasion exceeding $3 million with compounded interest." Arthur leaned forward over the desk. "Furthermore, Sarah left behind a paper trail in Brazil. When she entered the country under a false name, she committed federal wire fraud involving U.S. banking institutions. The statute of limitations on federal financial fraud involving bank trickery doesn't begin until the fraud is discovered by the victim. And you, Alex, only discovered her survival yesterday." Arthur slid a thick blue binder across the desk toward me. "We don't need to fight her in probate court over lottery money, Alex. We are going to invite her to sign an agreement." At 4:30 p.m. the following day, I met Sarah in the private conference room of the Grand Hyatt Hotel. She was waiting for me, sipping champagne from a crystal flute. On the table lay a single pen. She looked triumphant, like a conqueror waiting for a formal surrender. "Right on time, Alex," she said, leaning forward. "Did your attorney tell you to sign the settlement?" "Something like that," I said, taking a seat opposite her. I didn't bring a cashier's check. Instead, I placed 2 documents on the table. Document A was a full, unconditional quitclaim deed and postnuptial waiver, forfeiting any and all claims to my assets, my trust, and my estate, alongside a formal confession of marital abandonment. Document B was a federal criminal complaint initialized by the United States Attorney's Office for bank fraud, identity theft, and passport fraud, accompanied by an immediate arrest warrant waiting for execution in the lobby downstairs. Sarah looked at the papers, then looked up at me, her smile faltering for the first time. "What is this joke?" she snapped. "It's no joke, Sarah," I said calmly. "In the lobby downstairs there are 2 federal special agents and Detective Miller. You have 2 choices today." I pointed to document A. "Choice 1. You sign this waiver. You surrender every single claim to my life, my money, and my estate. You agree to a quiet, immediate annulment on grounds of fraud. In exchange, I agree not to hand the federal wire fraud evidence to the U.S. Attorney's Office today." I pointed to document B. Choice 2. You walk out of this room without signing. The agents downstairs arrest you before you hit the revolving doors. You will be held without bail as a severe flight risk due to your history of fake identities. You will face up to 20 years in federal prison, and every dime you have left in your private accounts will be seized by federal marshals to pay back the $400,000 you stole from my business 10 years ago, plus 20 years of interest. The color completely drained from her face, the smugness, the polish, the arrogance. It all dissolved in a matter of seconds, revealing the desperate, terrified fraud underneath. "Alex, please," she stammered, her voice cracking. "I was young. Marcus manipulated me." I thought about coming back for you and Leo every single day. The moment she mentioned our son's name, something cold and unyielding settled inside my chest. "Do not speak his name," I said, my voice quiet, hard, and absolute. "You didn't care if he starved. You didn't care if we lost our home. You left a 6-year-old child to drown in grief so you could live in luxury in Rio. You don't get to pretend you're a mother now." She looked at me, searching my eyes for any trace of the soft, forgiving husband she had left behind 10 years ago. She found nothing. With shaking hands, Sarah picked up the pen and signed Document A on every marked line. When she slid the paper back across the table, I picked it up, inspected the signature, and placed it safely inside my briefcase. She looked up at me, tears streaming down her carefully made-up face. Can I at least see Leo just once?" I stood up, buttoned my suit jacket, and looked down at her. "We already told people you were dead," I said, "and as far as my son is concerned, you still are." I turned around and walked out of the room, leaving her alone with her empty champagne glass and her consequences. I didn't give her to the federal agents that day, but karma has a way of completing its work without your help. 6 months after she signed the waiver, Sarah was arrested in Florida, attempting to use a fraudulent tax scheme against another target. She is currently serving a 6-year sentence in a state penitentiary. As for me and Leo, we didn't buy sports cars or mansions. We used the lottery trust to launch the Rivera Foundation for Single Parents, providing emergency housing and legal support for mothers and fathers who have been abandoned or financially abused by their partners. My son Leo is now in his first year of pre-law at university. He wants to be a family protection attorney. What I understand now, after 10 years of silence and survival, is this: revenge isn't about destroying the person who hurt you. It isn't about shouting, seeking confrontation, or matching their cruelty. Real revenge is building a life so complete, so honest, and so strong that when the people who tried to destroy you try to walk back into your world, they realize there is simply no room left for them. You are not required to keep the door open for people who locked it from the outside. You are not required to offer forgiveness to predators who only return when they smell blood or money. Build your own life. Protect your peace. Honor the people who stayed with you when the sky fell down. If this story helped even a little, if it made you feel less alone, or gave language to something you have carried in silence, please subscribe and turn on the notification bell so you don't miss future videos. Leave a like. It costs nothing and genuinely helps this channel reach people who need it. And if you feel comfortable, tell me in the comments where you are in your own version of rebuilding. You don't have to share details. Even a simple, "I'm rebuilding too" is enough. I read as many as I can. You are not alone. I'll see you in the next one.